Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Noel and I'm the Education Advisor here at Thinkful.
Hi, I am Liz and I'm on the Career Services team here at Thinkful.
And we wanted to welcome everyone to a very special edition of the Thinkful Web Development Bootcamp info session.
I'll be joining you guys today to talk about career services, what it's like, how it works, and I'll be looking forward to answering some of the questions that you might have following the info session too.
Yeah, so as Liz just mentioned, today we're going to be focusing the majority of the attention for the info session on the incredible job that my colleague Liz and everyone else here at Thinkful HQ does for the graduates of our program. First, I'll start out by briefly describing the Web Development Bootcamp program itself, and then we'll jump straight into the career services and job placement component of the program. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box or to email me directly at noel@thinkful.com in case there's something that we talked about that you want to go into greater detail on. So we'll go ahead and get started. I shared some slides, by the way, so if you'd like to reference anything on the slides via email or in the chat box, please feel free to do so. We'll be sure to post the slides up again after the presentation. So to start, I wanted to first talk about what the Web Development Bootcamp program is. It's a program that we've developed here at Thinkful that is structured to guide you from a beginner to an employed developer or engineer. Like everything that we do at Thinkful, it's structured around one-on-one mentorship, which is incredibly important, and it covers a full stack curriculum that includes the developer tools and the computer science concepts that you'll need to not only succeed in finding a job, but perform well at your future job. I'll first talk about the mentorship component in the full stack curriculum, and then my colleague Liz will cover career prep and job placement. But I wanted to note that one of the reasons that Thinkful focuses on one-on-one mentorship is that it's been proven time after time to be the most effective way of teaching students. And when you're learning something that can be as tricky as programming, it's important that you have a lot of personal attention on the technical side. And at Thinkful, that means a learning experience that's tailored exactly around who you are as a student and what your experience should be like. You'll always have a professional there who can answer any questions that you have about the program, and you're going to be working with that professional every single week of the program, multiple times a week, up until you build your final capstone project and you have that reviewed by your program manager and mentor and are ready to begin searching for jobs. Now, the tools that you're going to be using as part of the program focus entirely on JavaScript and its different frameworks. And one of the many reasons that we focused on JavaScript is that it really is the most widely used language in web development. It's also really highly versatile, meaning you can do both front end and the back end, really full stack development using just JavaScript and its different frameworks. And it's constantly evolving and therefore always in demand. Think of the tech industry giants like Google creating AngularJS or Facebook and Instagram focusing on React. Because these large companies and companies all around the country are using these technologies, you'll be prepared to fulfill the roles as developers that you're going to face once you graduate from a program at Thinkful. I also wanted to note that as part of the program, we're focusing on using these tools, having you use these tools to build entirely unique capstone projects, meaning that you're never going to graduate from a Thinkful program with a clone of Airbnb or Reddit or Pinterest or any of the other websites that you probably already use. Meaning that when you go into a job interview, you're going to present portfolio pieces that are entirely original, unique, and are going to leave a really long-lasting impression on the hiring managers that you work with, because you're going to be able to explain how you took that idea that you had in your mind for the app that you had from the very beginning stages, thinking about it from a user perspective, wireframing it, creating an MVP, having that MVP presented to your mentor, your program managers, your fellow peers, and getting so much feedback that you have from them, refactoring that into a second, more finalized version that you include on your portfolio. The program itself can be accessed at a flexible or at a more full-time pace, and I'm happy to talk about the differences between those two towards the end of the presentation, or better yet, one-on-one on a call with me, so that we can discuss which of the programs might be the better fit for you. But as the presentation is focused today, we're going to be talking about the career prep and the job placement component of the program, which itself leads up to these statistics that you see at the bottom of your screen. It celebrates the 93% job placement rate that we have. It celebrates that our graduates are seeing 130% salary increase, and that we're working with graduates all throughout the entire country. Perfect. So now, Liz, I think we'll move into the career prep and job placement component of the program. We'll have this slide up here for a minute, and then we'll hop on to another slide.
Hi guys, there is a team of people here in Career Services who will be working with you in the program, and I wanted to go over today a little bit about how it works. As you know, every industry is slightly different from another, and when it comes to tech, it's our job to show you what that means. In Career Services, you're in touch with us throughout the course. We first meet at the beginning of the program and highlight parts of the curriculum to pay attention to, as well as to find out about where you'll be conducting your job search and what type of company you may want to work for. At this point, we help you parse through the nuances of what that means, and we talk to you about what you can do before you graduate to set you up for a really smooth search. Many of our students find jobs while they're in the course. One of them just had an exciting placement, and so that is also something that happens as well. So happy to share more about that too. During the course itself, you're focusing on the technical and your learning development. And a part of assessing your knowledge is mock interviews. On your job search, you'll encounter a combination of mock interviews or coding challenges, and we want you to feel empowered for those. So in the curriculum, you'll work through a series of them, each with a different senior engineer to help you not only self-assess, but practice and feel comfortable with the process. On top of that, the suggestions we talked about in our first meeting, they come up as goals and points of reflection alongside the mock interviews. Students are very engaged in Slack as well. There are questions that come to us during the course. We have a couple of different Slack channels, so there are a lot of places to share your findings and experiences with others. When it comes to graduation, let me flip slides here. When it comes to graduation, we roll up our sleeves. So at first, we'll help you with resume review and really tightening up your online presence. We also help you explore and research top companies in your area and strategize your outreach on top of introducing you to companies we've partnered with and those you're interested in. Later on, we're there when you receive an offer, and we help you negotiate your salary. In fact, one of our most popular workshops is on salary negotiation with our head of education. So that's a quick overview of what we do. It's pretty comprehensive, and I think that one of the most impressive things about it is that you're learning skills that you use your whole life in every job search you conduct. I'm going to let Noel pick back up with the slides, but please feel free to ask questions after he's done or reach out to schedule a call. Happy to answer more, talk more about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And now the slide that I want to focus on next is actually focused on the success of the career prep in the program overall. We celebrate the success of our students by doing a number of things. First is that we publish data on what their outcomes are. We mean the job placement rate, what their titles are after graduation, where in the country they are, how many months it takes them to become employed, and a lot of other data that we think is very, very important for Thinkful as an institution to be completely transparent about, but also for potential students to consider when they're considering a boot camp, whether it's in person or online. In 2016, January of this year, Thinkful became the first online programming school to publish a report with such data. And earlier this year, we became the only programming school to have that report audited, or the only online programming school to have that report audited by a third party that ensures that every data, all the numbers that you see on there are accurate, that they're legitimate, and that the methods that we've applied are exactly as advertised. As I mentioned briefly, we publish this report for a number of different reasons. One is that because everyone here at Thinkful HQ is so passionate about education, and making sure that education is transparent, because that's really one of the only ways that you can build trust. That's number one reason that we publish the report. Second reason is that we do like to celebrate the success of individual graduates as well. And so by publishing the job placement rate, we can make sure that every graduate that has gone through our program, put in the effort and the hard time and the hard work into the program itself, can celebrate knowing that they're part of a community that has overall been very successful. My colleague Liz has worked with some of these graduates very closely over the last couple of months, over the last 6 or 7 months actually. And some of these graduates themselves, I also have worked with. So the way that usually happens is that you have a call with me, the education advisor, and I talk to you about your future goals as a career, in a career as a developer engineer, and of how Thinkful's program maybe or may not be a good fit. If it's a great fit, we transition you to the course, you put in the hard work while you're in the program, and then you meet Liz. And she's worked with some of these graduates herself. I'm sure that she has some stories that she would like to share.
Yeah, I worked with Matt and Christian, and both very different job markets with different strengths and weaknesses that we learned together and we played off of, and it was great working with both of them. Both different backgrounds, like all of our students really come from different backgrounds, and it's important to reflect your strengths and transferable skills from a professional background that you have that may be different, not in STEM, not in programming. And we certainly do that, as you can see with Matt. He was an English teacher before. He is now a developer. Christian was in sales. He's now a developer at CauseForce in California. So the two of these candidates, I'd say what really stood out about working with them is that they both learned soft skills. So their follow-up was great. We helped and encouraged them as they went through the process of salary negotiation and some of the potentially technical legal side of things that came up through the process. So I think it's helpful to emphasize that you're not doing this alone. I was talking to someone recently who was in a completely different industry. They were in the gaming industry, and she was describing how everything down to the resume, down to her cover letter, the whole process is very different from a typical job search. And there are some things that are unique in tech that you want to show that you might otherwise exclude. So yeah, it's fun working with everybody, and everybody's a little bit different, and everyone gets a lot of attention and help through the process, and it's a team effort here. There are a lot of people working on it.
And I think what's very important to note is what you mentioned, that you're not alone through this entire program, this entire process. I think a lot of times people forget that finding a new job isn't just about the technical training, but also, as Liz mentioned, the non-technical training as well, the soft skills that you need to successfully navigate through what, for some of you and for most of you, is a completely different industry. And unfortunately, that's not always the experience that I hear from students that have gone through other programs out there. A lot of times I hear or stories from students that were in an in-person bootcamp environment, and then what the career services or the career prep component of that program was sending these students to recruiters that either took a percentage of their salary or introduced them to companies that they'd already introduced 15 or 20 other students to. So I've also heard that certain programs have career fairs where 10 employers will show up, but there's 25 graduates. So you're competing against not only your fellow graduates, but every other recruiter that company or that particular employer has worked with in the past. And Thinkful's approach is very different in that we build a network of employers based on personal connections that are focused around the individual goals of each individual student and also their skill set. Matt Morris, for example, had a very special back-end development skill set, and we were able to find him a job in the Dallas, Texas area because, again, it's very focused around the one-on-one interaction with each student and their companies. And overall, that's something that I think you'll see reflected in the entire program, from their very beginning, building the technical skills, until the very end and finding a job. Now, because we know that our graduates are extremely successful, and we know that each individual student that goes through the program is going to have a great team of support in the technical and the non-technical component, we want to make sure that as a company, we're standing behind our graduates and their success, and our students and their future success. And one of the reasons that we can do that, or one of the ways that we can do that, is by offering a guarantee on your success. At Thinkful, if you don't find a job within 6 months of completing the program, we refund 100% of your tuition. And I wanted to note that there are also a couple of differences between the Thinkful Guarantee and the guarantee that you'll see from other companies or other boot camps. We're not going to give you a super long list of criteria that you have to abide by in order for that guarantee to even apply. But there are a couple of components that are important for that guarantee to be considered. That's what would be known at Thinkful as the not so fine print, meaning that you're at least 21 years old, and that you're legally able to work in the United States, and that you are proficient in spoken and written English. Outside of that, the last component is something that's very important, and it's that you're willing to move to a city with a healthy job or a healthy market for jobs if you're not already living in one. Now, I want to note that Thinkful is never going to publish a list of 26 or 27 cities and say, if you don't live in one of these cities, tough luck. And if you don't live in one of these cities, you have to apply to jobs in a city that is hundreds and thousands of miles away from you, or a city that's in a completely different part of the country, and whichever city you get the job in first, you have to relocate and uproot your entire life to. That's not the way Thinkful operates. It's not the way that our career services or our program overall operates, so we'll never ask you to do that. So if you do have questions about whether the city that you're currently living in would satisfy the guarantees, or via email with me personally. I do want to note that there are about 35 cities that would satisfy that component of the guarantee after speaking to our program managers here at Thinkful and other members of the career prep team. Cities that you wouldn't expect are definitely part of that. Kansas City, for example, in Missouri is a great example. Detroit, Michigan is another great example. Portland, Oregon. The list goes on and on. So definitely important to consider whether the program would be a good fit for you. And that's a conversation that's very important to have with me, for now, the education advisor, once you're in the program with Liz and with your program manager himself. Now, I wanted to jump real quickly into differences between the Web Development Bootcamp program, but the full-time and the flexible pace. I'll run through these really quickly just to make sure that some of you who are brand new to Thinkful understand that the Web Development Bootcamp program can be approached at a full-time or a flexible pace. I wanted to first note that the two programs will offer you the same curriculum, they cover the same concepts, that they have the same high level of personal mentorship, and you can expect the same career opportunities and the same job placement guarantee from both the full-time and the flexible program. Really, the key difference, as you already see on screen, is that they're structured for different students. The full-time program is very similar to an in-person bootcamp, follow a very rigorous and structured daily lesson plan of different pair programming sessions, seminars, and one-on-one mentorship sessions with your personal mentor. And you are working at a pretty immersive pace. 45 plus hours a week is what you can expect out of every week in the program to graduate in 4 months. The flexible program, on the other hand, is for someone who can't quit their full-time job, or who perhaps knows that they study better on their own. You work through the program at your own pace, committing at least 20 hours per week. You have 3 weekly one-on-one sessions with your personal mentor, and you graduate from the program in 6 months. Now, I wanted to note that you're not alone through either of the programs. You're always going to have a professional mentor or engineer available for help, either through your one-on-one sessions, through Slack, or more importantly, through a platform that's very original and very unique to Thinkful, which are live office hours that you can attend every single day of the week throughout the entire day. These are very similar to the one-on-one sessions that you have with your personal mentor, but other students can join in. But again, because there are so many of them, over 40 of them per week, it's really likely that you'll be either the only student or one of 2 or 3 other students in the session, meaning you get plenty of time to share your screen, work on projects with the mentor, and walk away with the answers that you had, or the questions that you had all answered. Now, I also wanted to touch on the scholarships and the financing options for the program. These are different because the two programs are very different in structure, but we do offer scholarships for both options. We've partnered with 3 really incredible organizations, Girl Develop It, Operation Code, and Mother Coders, to offer scholarships for the program for women and for military members. There's no application needed for these scholarships, and you can combine them with any of the different financing options and payment plans that we have. For the flexible program, the current price of the course is at $1,500 per month. For the full-time program, that's at $14,000. Again, the financing options are different for both, so if you'd like to talk about those in greater detail, please send me an email, and I'm happy to discuss that either over email or via call. Now, I wanted to wrap up real quickly by saying thank you everyone who was able to make this session today for joining us. And I wanted to apologize to some of you that may have jumped in late if the session was just too filled or too busy with students, unfortunately. But we are hosting another one of these at 6 p.m. Eastern time, so if you want to sit in for the first half of that or go through it again, we'd be happy to have you join us. For now, I think what we'll do is we'll actually hop off of the screen share, and we're hopping on back to the camera so that we can answer any of the questions that you have about the program. And if it references a specific slide, we'll just jump on back to the slides.
Cool. Hi.
Hi again.
Let's see, questions. We had a question about Colorado Springs, which I think popped up as a city when we were talking about cities that are eligible. I know that Denver is about an hour north of Colorado Springs, and that certainly is an eligible city. I've worked in Fort Collins. Obviously, Boulder is a big tech city, and they're kind of all around the same area. It's probably a good timing to mention how we, if you want to talk about that a little bit, but how we define a city as available for the job guarantee.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a very open-minded approach at considering a city, because we know that the industries will change over time, and that cities that you in the past didn't consider to be a good place for tech, in recent years have become a good place for tech. So what we do is we look through dozens of different sites that have job postings like dice.com, AngelList, many other websites out there where we can find jobs in tech, and we evaluate whether one, those are actual job postings, meaning that if you go onto dice.com and look up web developer, front-end developer, or back-end developer in Chicago, Illinois, that you don't receive over 100 entries or postings from recruiters. Companies like CyberCoders or Robert Half can probably name at least 5 other recruiting companies that really dilute the market by posting these fake postings. So it's important that when we search on AngelList or Dice, we write a search query that takes away those recruiters so that we are left with real postings. And then we analyze whether the postings are using technologies that Thinkful covers. JavaScript and its different frameworks, as I mentioned, is one of the most in demand and one of the most widely used, actually the most widely used development stack that there is out there. If you go onto github.com, Stack Overflow, you'll see that JavaScript is constantly number one. And so we're not worried about there not being JavaScript jobs, but we have to understand that certain regions of the country are using technologies that we don't teach at Thinkful and that many other bootcamps don't teach. Places like Cleveland, Ohio, for example, will focus a lot on ASP.NET or working with PHP or Java. And they're very in demand in those particular parts of the country, in those particular markets. They're not everywhere else. And so we focus on teaching you a language that's across the United States in the cities where most students are living.
Right, and it's interesting because some companies may have a listing for a particular language that you haven't studied, but that doesn't make it exclusive for you to apply to that company. We've had a lot of examples of actually 2 students in particular. We talked about Matt a little bit earlier, but he landed a job as a .NET developer after having gone through our program learning Angular. So in no way are you completely trapped in the language that you've studied. In many ways, we say that it is kind of a stepping point for you to master a technical skill, get really good at it, and that skill can be transferable even to something as actually divergent as .NET is from open source programming. Another example is we just had a student who got a job in New York City here learning or developing in Python, and she maybe took a Python class in college, but she focused on our course, and she went and spent time with Angular and Node, and so we will see people get jobs a little bit outside of their comfort zone. And there's sort of a formula in looking at a job listing and seeing if there's an amount of things that you feel that you qualify for going for that job. But also very true, as Noel was saying, that regionally there are differences, and JavaScript in front end is very ubiquitous. You know, it's a component of web development and web applications that is going to be just about everywhere. And it's really interesting to see the cities that are excited about it and looking to bring on tech talent, you know, in cities that already have a pipeline going, and you know what they're doing to encourage tech talent in different places. So yeah, there's a lot to learn about it, but it makes sense to do the search that we discussed, because oftentimes if we stipulated that a particular city was okay, but you know the search listing that we found was just 15 recruiters with potentially all similar roles or all the same role, it wouldn't be an accurate reflection. So we want to make sure it is an accurate reflection.
Yeah, and I would say that that's more so the case for cities that are kind of in that gray area that everyone has already accepted as tech cities, like San Francisco or Austin or places like New York City or Seattle. Those cities, of course, will always be great tech hubs because it's a well-established market there already.
Yep.
But it's funny, I wanted to note or go back to the note that you made about not being discouraged when you look at a job posting and thinking that you're not qualified for that. I was on the phone earlier with someone today who may be sitting on the info session now, actually, who asked me that in her location, she's looked at a lot of different job postings that will ask for 1 to 3 years of experience, will ask that she knows a ton of different languages and frameworks. And that's when we were on the phone, I mentioned to her, you shouldn't be discouraged by that. There's a formula that you have to take, or an approach that you have to take in making sure that you are qualified for a job or not. And that's something that my colleague Liz and everyone else in career prep will help you do.
Yeah, certainly. There's a kind of connection between a hiring person and a recruiter at a company, and oftentimes there will be a list of qualifications that recruiter is to fulfill in a candidate, but truly what they could be looking for is a little bit more outside of the box and a little bit creative, and we see that just about all of the time. So yes, definitely don't get discouraged. I think we have a question about an international student. Would online bootcamp students from Europe or the UK get any help with their job search after graduation, or is that aspect of the program US centered?
Yeah, so you probably saw me smile when you said Europe and UK for a couple of different reasons. And I think Liz is probably most excited about talking about the more recent reason that I smiled.
Yeah, well, we do in fact support you. I've worked to help Canadian students as well as students in the UK and Europe too. What Noel is referring to was actually a student who I didn't get to work with a lot. He got a job before he officially graduated from the course, and he got a job at the BBC, we're really excited for him. But yes, we do. The job guarantee is a bit more, I think, I'm not sure if we actually don't do the job guarantee outside the States. I think it's restricted to the United States. Yeah. But we're certainly willing to help you in terms of your resume, your online presence, negotiating salaries, talking to companies. I've done research outside of the States a bunch of times in Canada and the UK in agencies and different types of companies. So yes, we still help you. You are number one.
Yeah, and another component that I wanted to note on, and this is something that I very recently discovered by talking to our mentor manager, Ben, here at Thinkful, is that Thinkful mentors operate in 35 different countries around the world, with a large portion of those mentors based in Europe itself. Actually, one of the lead instructors for the full-time program, Joe Turner, is a professor of computer science at a university in London. So we have mentors that are working from around the world, and that gives us a better idea of what markets around the world look like. So we can turn to those mentors for advice and guidance on how to grow the network of employers that we're working with, should a student from Australia, for example, consider joining the program, or should someone from Berlin, Germany decide to join the program. These are all components of the career prep program that are very personalized. So although the guarantee may not be offered for international students, you can expect the same level of support to the same degree as we would with any student in the United States.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about our network, is that we just have mentors and students everywhere, and it creates like a really good, warm connection to different places and people.
Are there some other questions that we may have?
We do have a question about, I noticed that you can take the flexible bootcamp at any pace you want. What would be the difference between taking the flexible course in the same amount of time as the full-time course?
So in theory, as related to time and time commitment, not very different. You're expected to put in about 50 hours per week to the flexible program if you want to graduate in those 4 months. But it is a lot more tricky. And so one of the reasons that we advise students that can put in those 50 hours per week and are able to follow that structure to enroll in the full-time program. Really, the level of support that you receive in the full-time program when you're going at that immersive of a pace is almost essential. And you still have that support in the flexible program. If you're a student in the flexible program, you can be in touch with a mentor every single day of the week, multiple times a day, through the Q&A sessions, through your personal one-on-one sessions. But it's important to note that if you're working through the program at a pace of 50 hours per week, 10 days, 5 days of the week, it's important that you have a very structured program. So if you know that you're not the type of student who can follow your own instructions very well, or that you can keep a very rigorous schedule, I know that I'm certainly not one of those students. I wouldn't benefit from doing the flexible program at a pace of 50 hours per week. I would definitely do the full-time program, because I know that I need to have someone let me know what needs to be due at what time, what projects I'm working on. If I'm doing it at a pace of 20 to 25 hours per week, great, I can handle that load. But if I'm doing 50 hours a week, definitely need to have a little bit more structure and support.
Makes sense. Let's see. Are there any scholarships available for students?
There are, definitely. And the scholarships that we have are for women and U.S. military members, both active and discharged. As I mentioned during the presentation, these are different for the full-time and the flexible program. The scholarships have the same total amount, so $1,200, but they're dispersed or awarded at a different format. The flexible program is at $200 per month, so your program fee would be $1,300 per month. For the full-time program, it's the $1,200 applied to whichever financing option or payment plan you decide to consider as the one that you'd like to enroll with. Again, if you do have more specific questions about these, please feel free to reach out to me via email, or we can go ahead and post the link to the financing options page in the chat box so you have a direct link to that. Let's see.
I think we're pretty close to wrapped up with questions. There is one question. Do you guys have any plans on moving to other programs like data science with the same job guarantee policy?
We do. We haven't yet decided which program, but you can expect that sometime, not this year, but sometime in the next year. We understand that data science and other development realms are very, very in demand as well. So for now, we're focused on web development and software development, but in the future, you can definitely expect something different from Thinkful. Yeah.
I think that's it, Noel. I think we're good with questions.
Great. So I wanted to real briefly discuss the next steps. If you're someone who is interested in finding out more about Thinkful, figuring out whether the full-time program or the flexible program would be the right option for you, or you have any questions about the career prep and job placement component of the course, the curriculum, the mentorship, any of the different components that I mentioned during the presentation or that Liz talked about, please feel free to reach out to me via email. My email address is noel@thinkful.com. That's NOEL@thinkful.com. And other than that,
thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for joining us for the info session. I look forward to potentially speaking with you all one-on-one. Other than that, have a great rest of the day and potentially see some of you in about 5 hours.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.